but we all would agree that the number one need, I think, is the offensive line. Now, some people would say, well, it could be the defensive line too, because they do have a bunch of defensive line free agents and corner. It would be nice to have a number one corner. But I would say offensive line probably is the biggest need. The question is this: do you attempt to fill the offensive line need in, just like in one or the other, the draft or free agency, or do you look to fill the offensive line needs and try to take stabs at both free agency and the draft? To me, the question is, I think they've got three openings. I think they're only really set at left tackle and left guard. I'm not set at center. I'm not set at right guard. I'm not set at right tackle. I think all those guys could be backups. But what do you think, Coach? Is there, there's a lot of projection here. I don't see a great tackle free agent market, but there is Trent Brown.
I was just about to say that.
And there's Jermaine Illuminor from the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Both those guys have good PFF rankings for the year. I like the idea of the monster-bodied Trent Brown coming back, but they got rid of him once upon a time because he wasn't in shape. And then guard-wise, there's a bunch of guys. Nick Allegretti, Cody Whitehair, Ezra Cleveland, Damian Lewis, Sadiq Charles. There's a bunch of guys out there. How would you attack the offensive line in trying to improve it?
I would go young and go in the draft. I feel like you can make things happen with the draft, where you can get cheap. You can stick a guy in there right away and he can be there for 10 years. I feel like offensive line is something that's very, very important, but it's really not rocket science. You invest in a guy that you think can stay there. And the problem with us is that we don't value the position schematically, inherently, and offensively. We just don't. Kyle has said, when asked directly about the offensive line, Kyle has come out and said that, you can scheme around things like that, right? But there comes a time where when you're trying to win a Super Bowl and you're putting your team under its stress test, you can't scheme around that, right? And I feel like it's going to be hard for us to go out and get a free agent that's really going to stick there for a while on top of the guys that we have to pay. That's why I feel like going young, going through the draft. I mean, if you want to go young, you want to go cheap, you go through the draft. I feel like it's time for us to start hitting on some of these earlier guys. And I wouldn't mind. I know that we're talking about tackles, but for what it's worth, stay with your ethos. You don't want to get high-priced guys at the position because you feel like you can get the skill set at a lower price or for a lower asset. All right, cool. I feel like they may turn it around with Colton McKivitz. He's got a full season under his belt. All right. And I think they may like him in trench right there. Honestly, I believe that the real positions that they're going to change are the guard and the center. And at 31, you can get the best center in the draft. You can get even like the second best center in the draft. I feel like getting a center, Kyle has come out and said, again, the center is the most important position on this team. He calls the protections. He sets the slides. He makes sure that he audibles for changing the mic and blitz pickup. And I remember what Alex Mack did for our offense. Remember Alex Mack? And Alex Mack was at the end of his career. And Kyle was so over the moon about Alex Mack and what he was doing for our offense, how he was understanding how to set the protections, how he was setting the line of attack at the point of attack. I mean, I'm telling you right now, one of the biggest things for us is that I think that Jake Brendel is kind of going under the radar as being a really big issue for us offensive line wise, but it's the truth. I feel like a strong center lifts two positions simultaneously while being a good position within of yourself. So I feel like a good center, or if we're not going to go center, a corner or a tackle, because I feel like the value will be there, right? Like if an Amarius Mims slips, you can't not take Amarius Mims.
To me, I mean, I agree. I mean, Mims is really, really intriguing. Just, just the perfect prototype body type. I
Mhm.
mean, he's just, he could, if you passed on him, and I don't know, he's only got 8 career starts, so it's a major risk.
Mhm,
But if you
mhm.
pass on him, there's a chance that you're going to look up in 15 years and he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And
Right. But then there's some other
he's that
guys
kind of
too.
talent.
See, this is how I see our draft. It's a little sneaky. It's a problem for us because at 31, in the position that we're in, we can end up reaching too far for a guy that doesn't deserve to be picked in the round, or missing on a guy that will not be available at all by the time we get our next crack at bat. So our problem is finding value for where we are in the draft, right? So the top 5 guys in for the tackles right now that I know are pretty much dreams, they're not going to have them, is Joe Alt, Fashanu from Penn State, Talisi Fuaga, which I believe is the best tackle in the draft, J.C. Latham out of Alabama, he's built out of granite. I mean, he's a video game player, like 6'6", 360, and runs a 4.8. I mean, what else do you want to talk about? Then Amarius Mims, who for me, he's not as glossy as J.C. Latham as far as measurables in play, but Amarius Mims has a much higher ceiling than J.C. Latham. J.C. Latham has played a lot of football. All right. And for the things that Amarius Mims is doing in his short amount of starts, with the strength, the understanding of angles, the get off, it took J.C. Latham. I'm an Alabama fan, by the way, for context. It took J.C. Latham years to get to that level of play. So I just think that Amarius Mims has a much higher ceiling than him. But those are the top 5 tackles you got. The contingencies right now, I know Jesse loves Jordan Morgan. Jordan Morgan is a guy, but he's got short arms. I believe you and I talked about this.
Yeah.
On the show. Right now, outside of that, I feel like somebody that would be reputable at tackle would be Tyler Guyton, Patrick Paul, or Graham Barton.
And the kid Sumatea from BYU is also, they're saying that his workout in Indy could just be off the freaking charts.
What it is, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, just that he's just a crazy athlete at 6'6". He's been listed at 280. I've seen him as high as 315. So I think he's kind of the international man of mystery going into the combine is Kingsley Sumatea, who started at Oregon, transferred to BYU. It's interesting looking at just some of the mock drafts and I think we kind of know that there's certain positions you could probably rule out. But I think when it gets down to the, where the Niners pick at 31, they're going to be looking for offensive tackle, defensive tackle, wide receiver, cornerback. Mm-hmm. I think those are probably the spots.